Funky intro. Welcome back to Truth Quest. My name is Moriarity. I will be your host. We're going to go on a quest for truth together. And today, friends, we have a returning guest, my very first guest, in fact, the amazing Corey Goode. Welcome back to the Truth Quest, Corey.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a while.
Yeah, anytime you want, you can come on to the Truth Quest, believe me.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm so excited to do this, and I'm very honored. So let me just say that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You've been dropping some intel these last few months, and you do it in a very unique way. It's kind of brilliant, if you ask me. The SSP Alliance updates. And it's done with like a robotic voice, but I think that's perfect because there's no emotion. And we really don't want to be emotional with all this, right? So I think that's great. And
yeah, it was sort of, I was told by the SSP Alliance contact that I was doing this through, how they wanted it formatted and delivered. They didn't want me stumbling my way through with my words, paraphrasing them as I normally do. They wanted directly this information coming out as through them as possible. They wanted it in this robotic voice format for some reason. I was going to have someone read it, but no, they wanted it like this. And, we had the write-up. We had a person in the Alliance go through and edit it, an Alliance-friendly person to make sure everything was okay. And, I had help from, a few other people. We'll talk about more a little bit later, that, some people that I met while on a trip to Brazil through Fabio, and Fabio's helped as well. And he's actually had the same reports on his network, his Portuguese network, translated into Portuguese.
Wow.
Yeah. So they helped quite a bit.
I guess the voice translates well then. I mean, you don't have to re-record it in another voice. You just hit a button. So that's very interesting.
There were a lot of complaints though, too. There were a lot of complainents.
I noticed that. But I disagree with the complaints. I think it's actually
it wasn't my preferred format. I would rather have had. I have access to all these people that I could, hire to read, or something like that, but they didn't want it done that way. Especially when we're talking about the enemy being AI, and then you have a robotic voice. It's a little weird, but that's the way they wanted military people deliver things in certain ways, and doesn't always make sense to civilians.
I guess they want AI to know about it by using AI.
Yeah. We've had to be very clever how we deliver the information about the AI over the years. I first delivered it on the television show I was on about 6 or 7 years ago.
I remember that.
And it was a huge deal at the time. Now people seem to be getting less and less afraid of AI and transhumanism, which is starting to scare me. To be able to put this information out, we've had to be very clever. The information about Dark Fleet, all these different groups, we've had to be very clever in how we delivered it to get it through the AI code, on the internet. But it's also helped out with people coming forward with fake stories, just parroting all of my verbiage that we used for just such an occasion.
Yeah, I could have had a lot of these recent so-called whistleblowers on my show, but to be honest with you, I can't listen to them for more than 5 minutes, and I don't know, something inside me says, not a good fit. And I remember that you did say early on too that more people would be coming out, but so far for me, the only one I noticed was William Tompkins. That might not even have been an alliance planned thing. He just did it.
It was actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I was very happy to meet Tompkins on a number of occasions and work with him. Yeah, if any of these new people that came out were real, I would be promoting them and working with them, saying, hell yeah, look at this. But it's a lot of people parroting, basing stuff off of my information, and it's just not, it's just fantasy. There were several people that we had, I gotta be real careful here. A few of them we're still talking to for some television shows we're working on. Okay. But okay, some of the people that we had that were coming forward of my same caliber and experience, when they were about to come forward, was during the middle of all the cyber stalking against me.
Oh boy.
And I was getting doxxed, and family members, people I used to work with, getting called and harassed. It's pretty nuts. So that caused a lot of the people, the real people that were going to come out, to really, decide not to. Oh. And they were delivering information to David and myself through the background. That's what I was doing until I was outed.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And when I was Carrie Cassidy, when I was outed against my will, that's if she hadn't have done that, no one in this audience would ever have heard my name. They just would have heard Luke or these different code names that David had for me. Mm-hmm. So it's really weird how everything came about, but the universe wanted all of this out in the open. So I guess here we are.
Yes, here we are. And now getting back to those updates, the first one you had was I think it was Reptilian ET bases on the Moon, Mars, and Antarctica, part 1. Talked about Lush and slaves and Mika, the Anchar, and the Olmec.
1 and 2 were basically the same kind of report. 1 and 2 were kind of like part 1, part 2. But yeah, even I was taken off guard at how much of a spiritual component there is to everything going on. Mm-hmm. When we were able to view this nest, this city that the Reptilians had, they were working with all of these different demonic entities and shadow beings. And they were able to order these shadow beings around and assign them to various people. And, they were remote viewing, and people that would pop up on their radar from this community, often, they would just say, oh, this person's burning bright. We need to throw some shade on them. So they would throw some shadow people on them. Mm. And then all of a sudden, maybe the light worker is sitting, in their home, they're still vibing, they're doing well, but their husband or their wife starts just getting agitated for some reason, or no reason, or their children or someone else. And the next thing you know, they're squabbling, and it just throws off the energy in the house. And then you get caught in this cycle, and these shadow beings are sitting back, orchestrating it and feeding off of the energy. And a lot of times the light workers are, they have some sort of belief system to where, I am protected, my guides would never let this happen, or, and so they refuse to look at what's actually going on in their home. So these, and sometimes these really tall shadow beings are actually the reptilians themselves. They project themselves into, people's homes and do recon, gather Lush energy as well.
So those are reptilians doing this?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's like the devil and hell. It's all of that's real.
Yeah.
The kicker is that the Reptilians and the Orion group came down and used our fertile imaginations and co-creative abilities, gave us religions. And the next thing you know, we're creating hell.
Yeah, that's another thing I was going to ask you about.
We're sending ourselves into each other to hell, to a hell we created.
Right.
Um,
So should we?
The devil itself, the Satan that everyone worries about, is an egregore, which is a conscious created by the mass consciousness of humanity. We were tricked into creating this personification of evil, and the more we focus on it, the more we're constantly feeding it and making it real and keeping it alive. And these negative ETs used our consciousness in all sorts of different ways, but they also use our spirituality, and they're causing us to get caught up in these traps, these spiritual traps, by creating our own. People talk about their dark side, or that they have to deal with their dark side. Well, that's really where these shadow beings and demons and all of these different things came from. They came from the shadow side of the mass consciousness of humanity. And we're haunted by them. And there are ways to protect yourself and have power over them. But we've forgotten so much about what we are. And these ET beings, these negative ETs, are causing us to have this inability to remember, and are manipulating us spiritually and consciously to basically we're keeping ourselves in a prison that we're creating on an ongoing basis.
That's incredible. I know you said Mika's people, they created 3 different hells. Now, is that because they had 3 different major religions?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe so the answer to this might be, if we can get enough people to think of the devil as being like Dr. Evil or someone kind of comical, then maybe, or just no hell at all. I mean,
well, just think about over the eons when we've had these different solar events. It's a cycle that happens. There have been civilizations that fell, and they had these deep, strongly held religions that had evil beings. And what happened to them after that civilization collapsed? Did they fade away only to be conjured up again if we happen to find a text? Right. Is that what would happen to our devils and demons if after this solar cycle and people forget about them? Do they go away after a period of time only to be conjured up again later? This is all like this magical energy, and this energy is the energy of it's like the catalyst for manifesting in our consciousness. If ET beings come down and tell us, give us a doctrine, and in that doctrine they talk about how if you don't behave a certain way, you're going to go to a place where you're going to be burned for eternity, and through fear, through the component of fear and the imagination, shared imagination of the mass consciousness, they're creating this time-space pocket that we actually can experience because we've manifested it.
Wow, that wow, we create it with our own fear. That is just incredible.
Yeah, religions, all different types of doctrines, including some of the political doctrines, which are somewhat religions now, all are put here and you see everyone left and right going at each other. People in the community who happen to lean left or right going at each other. All they're doing is every time they go at each other is they're reinforcing the bricks and the walls of this reality that these evil entities wanted us to create and tricked us into creating. And we stubbornly keep creating it for them constantly on an ongoing basis, when this reality, this co-created reality that we all agree upon, could be so much different if we weren't being manipulated or allowing ourselves to be manipulated.
Oh my goodness. Now, have you personally ever seen a shadow being?
Oh my God.
So
Yes.
I got a picture of one here. It's the first one I ever saw, and it was in a book. It's in this book by Lisa Romanek. But there it is.
The ones I've seen in my family are
That's what,
absolutely crisp. They're actually
really?
crisp shape of an outline of humans. My son, both my kids are psychic mediums.
Okay.
And I was, when I was a little child, I hadn't talked about it much. It was kind of traumatic. My family was not very happy about it because they're very strong Christian. And I was talking to things that weren't there and freaking out, having visits in the night. Around 11 is when that kind of snapped off, shut off. My closet door opened in the middle of the night and a shadow being came out. And the shadow being also was kind of an old man and a shadow being at the same time. So it was a ghost. It wasn't an actual shadow being. And I screamed bloody murder. And I remember I didn't think any sound was coming out. I was like trying to scream, but my mom and stepdad kicked in the door and they said it sounded like I was being murdered. And after that, it kind of switched off. It stopped happening. And I think that might happen with my son because this is how I got onto this. He was in the old house we were in. He was sitting on the floor playing, and he said he was surrounded by shadow beings, and they leaned in on him, and he just freaked out, and didn't sleep in his own room for a long time. But in that house, it was infested. We had shadow beings, we had demonic intrusions, we had all sorts of things, and we had to be taught by our guides, the Anshar and others, how to protect ourselves. And we learned we had to leave the other house because there was like some sort of portal action going on there. It was horrible. Since we've moved here, we don't have demonic intrusions or shadow beings. We've used measures to protect ourselves, but my kids still see. My daughter has random dead people come into her room and try to communicate with her. She's kind of embraced it. I think she's really going to be gifted at that. But my son, it still freaks him out. A couple of weeks ago, I was sitting there. He was in front of me. He was looking at the iPad, and Stacy is on the other side. And I saw his hair just lift up, and his eyes got real big. He went, "Daddy, something just touched my hair." And I said, "I saw it." And his hair lifted up and fell. And that sort of thing happens all the time. But when he sees them, the ghostly entities that approach him, he sees them as different colored orbs.
Okay.
Yeah. That's how he perceives them, as different colored orbs. So yeah, we've had quite a lot of activity. It's because we attract it,
Wow.
And we've had to learn how to deal with it. But yes, we have seen, everyone in my family has seen shadow people.
Wow. So for all those of you out there who want experiences like Corey's, maybe it's not something you want because these things come with it. Wow.
Be careful what you wish for. Yeah.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
I got a question going back in your material. When you were in the programs in the 20 and back, you talked about how you were used with other intuitive empaths to figure out where these natural portals on Earth would be, and that they would you'd know where it was going. Like, so this one's going to Mars, and okay, this one's not up in the air, it's on the ground, so we can send a pallet full of tanks and stuff to Mars, right?
Yes, and what affected that was that all three of us, they called it triangulating, all three of the intuitive empaths were told the target. It's like remote viewing. You're given a target, and basically we would be taken to an area where these natural portals are, and they would have equipment that they would bathe this area with a certain type of energy. I don't know what it was, but the intuitive empaths would then just sit around and read the frequency. Is the only way I know how to put it. We're not seeing anything. It's just, we know it's like a tone or a frequency, and then bing, 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 we all get it. And then they turn on the device that pumps a whole lot of energy into that portal point, because that portal, it's a natural portal. People, remote viewers, can travel through those portals. That's what most shamans do when they're using these portals. When they talk about different portals out in the mountains, most of them are what I'm describing, to where they sit down, go into a meditative state, and then the next thing they know, their consciousness is somewhere else, and they're like this little orb floating around on another planet somewhere, observing, So that's, they use equipment to open up that into a physical portal that you can physically access.
Wow. So these natural physical portals aren't just popping in and out randomly.
They do, but it's random. It happens. So if we happen to be there at the exact right time during a solar storm, or if our solar storm happens at the exact same time as Alpha Centauri's solar storm, this weird thing happens, then it can overload with energy. You have an actual open portal that'll open.
Wow.
Or there are certain ones that during certain alignments, astronomical alignments, they open up.
Sure.
But otherwise, they're the first type of portal that I described.
Okay, so these natural portals that happen even without technology, I mean, if a solar system has one planet with life on it and these portals are happening on all the planets, that life would be redistributed. Maybe that's how some of that happens.
Yeah, I think to some degree you have some wandering through portals. There was speculation that maybe that's how Bigfoot, came about, or that's why it kind of pops in and pops out of our reality, because it either maybe consciously knows how to exploit these portal systems, or they're just kind of falling victim to them. They're kind of fading in and out of different dimensions or locations. That's been some of the speculation that I've heard. But there are a lot of weird things that happen around these portal sites, and the type of activity, it's not going to be consistent. It's all going to depend on astronomical alignments, storms in the area, electromagnetic storms, lightning storms. Even what can contribute to it is how often that stone in the area has discharged its charged electricity. Because if there's a stream running over granite or a crystalline type of rock, the friction of wind and water running across these rocks creates a piezoelectric conduction that builds up like a capacitor in the rocks. And every once in a while, when the atmosphere, when there's certain, if it's dry enough and maybe cold enough, or there's a temperature inversion of some sort, it creates the right conditions to where the stone can release the electricity. And often that is in the form of orbs, like what you see out at ESETI, that kind of thing. And those orbs, that energy is then utilized by the consciousness of, being somewhere like a shaman on another planet that's wanting to explore around here. Then they use that as like a Merkaba to travel around.
Wow. Wow, that is incredible. My favorite ET now is Emmy, because in one of these updates that you did, he shows up at this I think it's on a Lunar Operations Command, a secret ICC, International Corporate Conglomerate meeting. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden he appears there and he's got his hands behind his back, and and you talk about how if an assassin tries to shoot him, he opens a portal in front of his face, and the portal opens up in front of his face and it gets him.
Yeah, it's the ultimate, I guess, Aikido kind of principle.
Yeah, and he seems a very joyous person too.
Always just dancing around, smiling, sparkling eyes.
Wow. That is incredible. I mean, he just seems like such a cool cat, and all those people. And well, I just love the way you described him. He's got feathers, like a feather headdress or something. He's doing this dance and all
Not
these.
all the time, but yeah, at certain times, yes. During the times when I had those entity attachments that just kept coming over and over, and the Anshar would get rid of them, but then they would come back. And it was one of the Zulu fully dressed out that were able to close whatever opening, and they did it by doing this huge dance.
Yeah.
At the end. Yeah.
At the end,
clap. Yeah.
he made all the guns go to the ceiling and made all the people go on the floor and writhe in pain, and about a third of them. Wow, that's incredible. That is just incredible. Also, you went to the reptilian bases. That sounds like it was traumatic.
Yes, yeah, that was what we were talking about in the beginning, where just the place was infested with all sorts of like demonic beings and shadow beings. It was, yeah, it was like hell. It was basically, if Enoch or one of the old prophets was taken to the place I was, they would have said it was hell.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. And you're actually doing a class on preventing these entities from getting you, or to get rid of them.
Yeah, it's called Surviving Ascension. Okay. And if you go to ascensionworks.tv, look under courses, you'll find it. It's a culmination of everything we've learned over the last like 8 years. We've literally had Satanists bragging on video about using ceremonies to infest us with negative beings, and many other people just shooting negativity at us, to where it was causing a lot of problems, and we had to learn how to deal with it. And not only that, we're talking about how to recognize, end time madness in everyone. Mm-hmm. End time madness, when people go through their karmic typhoons, they are sending off, energy that we can get wrapped up in as well. So, we're talking about, just knowing when people get triggered, if they have entity attachments or problems with these entities in their life, how are they going to be manipulated to affect your life? If you are doing everything right, protecting yourself, it's like they always go to the next layer of people around you. So right now, you need to decide whether it's time to, sometimes cut cords with relationships, and focus inwardly, and also on protecting your home. We're going to, talk about a lot of different methods of protecting your home. I'm probably going to talk also some about how we've dealt with our gifts as they've unfolded, and with our children. How to teach them to protect themselves while also, honoring their gift and not being afraid of their gift, like our son has dealt with. We're going to talk about those sorts of things, but, over the last 5 years, especially, we've dealt a lot with the spiritual war aspect, but we've also had to deal with the people aspect. We've had people that we loved that succumb to either entity attachments or some sort of end-time madness or their own distortions, and then just collapsed and caused a lot of waves in our own lives. We brought a lot of people in close to our family, and we learned a lot of lessons in that regard. And it's all going to come out in this course. This course, I'm very excited about this course, because the methods that we learned to protect ourselves in the spiritual warfare stuff, these were hard learned lessons, and these methods are very effective. We are so protected right now. I mean, anything that's being thrown at us is bouncing right back at the sender.
That's awesome.
So we're looking very forward to getting this out, this information out to the community, because a lot of people are going through this and don't even realize it.
Right, right. I bet. Yeah. And going back to when Emmy appeared at that meeting, and all the guns went up in the ceiling and the bad guys went on the floor and they're riling, and he says, just so you can't say the devil made you do it, all these wispy entities come flying out of them.
Yeah.
Wow. That must have been, you saw like a holographic image of that. And I also want to thank Christina Love for the super chat. Thank you very much. The sticker. Thank you very much.
Yes, yes. Those were entity attachments that the people had, but it also affected the nanites and the AI signal briefly. It gave these people time to hear it with their own ears, not, under the AI influence or under the entity attachment influence.
So they're holding their heads.
Yeah.
They're holding their heads in pain because the AI is being suppressed. Wow. I suppose your body gets kind of used to those things being there, and if it stops, it's kind of abrupt.
Well, yeah, I mean, overall, it's receiving energy from the subspace AI connection, and in this energy is Loosh. It's the pain and suffering of your fellow humans, and that energy is going through these nanites and into subspace to feed the AI, and that's there's a little kickback being given to the people, so that's kind of like the adrenochrome thing. People have got this extra vigor, and they feel a high, and they get a kickback.
Wow. Well, there's so many people waking up, and thank goodness some of them, the government is starting to admit some little teeny tiny portions of some of this stuff, but we're way beyond all that. We are dealing with some very, very interesting things. Now, some people are worried so much about the upcoming solar flash that some people, even influencers, are saying, well, it's not going to happen because we're going to make it not happen by our minds. But you were told, correct me if I'm wrong, that why would you want to stop the evolution of your planet or the ascension of your planet and people, right?
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you. I think maybe in the time of Noah, as the first drops of water were dropping and he was gathering his people to get inside the boat, people were standing out saying, we can transmute this. This is not, I guarantee you that was happening.
Oh, yeah. The unicorn dinosaur.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, people are scared shitless, So and out of that fear, they're saying, oh, wait a minute. No, that's not my truth. This is I'm sorry. It's happened every so many thousand years for billions of years. Just because you're scared and you have a personal religious belief that if you believe hard enough, you think you can make the sun not explode. That's ego. I'm sorry, but we are just these little fleas on the back of a dog. The fleas don't take a vote and say, no, you can't take a bath. Right. It'll ruin our day.
The flea collar, too.
I'm sorry. Humans are very interesting creatures, aren't we?
Well, what people don't understand probably, and it's hard to understand when we're stuck in these bodies, is we inside these bodies are immortal spiritual beings that live forever, and this is going to be just a bump in the road. And when we'll be coming back to an Earth that's a whole new place, and we can watch Emmy dance around and make awesome things happen. And
Mika's people were scared when they were first hearing that this was going to occur on their planet.
Right.
But after they were able to overcome this AI influence, and they kind of came together to overcome their cabal, very much like what we're doing, thank God.
Mhm.
Were actually getting out there and on the streets and doing what his people did. It went from them believing that their sun was going to explode, their planet was going to be destroyed, and them burned alive, and seeing the oceans boil and all of that. That fearful part of their essence was feeding them for a while. But after they overcame that, when the solar event did occur, it was a highly anticipated event. And it did cause some upheavals and some issues on their planet, but they were prepared for it. They weren't in denial with their fingers in their ears or their heads in the sand, like an ostrich, in denial. They faced it head on bravely, and they are a much more evolved culture because of it. But if we chase this solar event with fear and denial up until the very last moment, it's not going to be that pleasant of an event on our planet. We can't, just through denial say that, well, yes, it's happened over so many thousand years, but whatever Galactic Federation, whatever beings have decided that we've just been through so much, it doesn't have to happen. If we were to interrupt the solar flash, if we were able to, that's our entire solar system going through an ascension process. Mm-hmm. Who are we as the fleas on the dog to say the dog can't graduate, because we're not ready, or it's too scary. So, I really don't know what to say to those that, believe that, they can create another timeline by telling stories or whatever. If that's where you need to go during this cycle to finish things off because it's too scary for you, then I guess you're welcome to it. But those of us that came here to manifest right now need to be living in that power and helping manifest the fall of the cabal, the release of information, if not full disclosure, enough for the mass consciousness of humanity to snap awake. Mm-hmm. If that can happen before the solar event occurs, it's going to be an entirely different scenario. But if people, live in denial or, go into their own little personal space and try to create a new reality, they're not really contributing to this one, and they're really going to be a part of the problem instead of part of the solution.
Wow. I keep thinking, okay, what am I going to do? I'm on a peninsula between two large bodies of water. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should just get a surfboard, carry it with me all the time, with some stickum for my feet so I can stay on the thing. I don't know, but that's just for my human body. But I know they told you that parts of Colorado might be safe, but who knows? Were there any other areas that they said were safe that you can remember?
Yes, around in the Arkansas area. I'm trying to remember the name of the area, what it's called. But Arkansas, parts of the Carolinas.
Wow. Arkansas and parts of the Carolinas. There you go, folks. Start looking for houses. But really, our souls are eternal. We live forever.
Yeah, that's what I was sitting here thinking. It's we're so in love with our ego and our life that we don't understand. I mean, at the moment of death, what if all of a sudden we find ourselves in an arcade with all of our friends standing around going, "Can you believe what that badass? That was awesome!" And you're like, "Whoa!" You totally forgot who you were, your entire reality, and you're a part of this whole new thing that you became immersed in. And that's what this reality is all about. It's a place to come and have experiences. People, if anyone ever asks you what's the meaning of life, it's 3 words: to learn, teach, and to love. And we're here to have an experience. We're here to learn, we're here to teach, and we're here to love. no one's going to get out of this scenario alive. We're all going to die. I don't care if ETs come back tomorrow, you're not going to live forever. Who cares if it's through a solar flash or if you die an old, happy old person with your family around you? You're going to die. And when you do, you're going to break away from the ego that you hold so dear right now, that life you hold so dear. It's going to mean nothing to you. And the only thing that's going to be of any worth to you is that experience. And then you're going to incarnate and have another one. And until you feel like you've gone through your soul journey. And then you return back to the one infinite creator, bringing all of those experiences with you. And that's what we're all a fragment of the one infinite creator that forgot we're God. So we could have these god awful experiences, these horrible experiences. These are all the same being having the same experience with itself over and over and over again. And it's all about, understanding duality and having experiences.
And people look outside for God when God is really inside. So that's just, to me, and when I left my body, it changed my life. It made me think of everything completely differently. And I didn't fear death anymore. I was back in the 80s, 84, 83, 84. But yeah, but the one thing we can do here is feel and experience and discover, because when you're out of your body, you know everything and you can't discover anything. So it's nice to discover things.
It is.
So learn, teach, and love. I love that. That's great. Now, some of the other, now everyone needs to go to Sphere Being Alliance YouTube page and watch these updates. And because there's so much information, you got the reptilian bases on the moon, Mars, Antarctica. You got the reptilian agenda. You have the gray alien agenda revealed. So everyone wants to know what these aliens, what's their agenda? What would you say to that, to put it in a nutshell? What these aliens, what they really want?
It's different layers of the agenda. We have the Orion group. It's a group that ended up being taken over by this AI. They're all infested with nanites. They are all a part of this giant, kind of like the Matrix, how they're using human beings as light bulbs, power sources. They're using each planet as a power source to where they, through misery and all of these other things, war and strife and slavery, generate loosh. And we're constantly feeding them like Monsters Inc., where they scare the kid, the screams fill the batteries with energy. It's really the same principle, and we are constantly feeding these entities, and they're just parasites. They're physical and etheric parasites, and they're using our mass consciousness. They come down, they find a nice ripe species, maybe even help them develop a little bit to develop their consciousness to a point where it's powerful enough to start this co-creative process. And then they start affecting it and tinkering with it with religions and scary events, or any number of ways to cause them to live in fear, not use their intellect, but to use their raw emotions and the animal side of our essence. And in doing so, we are creating this fear energy that they feed off of.
Yeah. Wow. It's like their worship. It's like evil worship, right? Wow.
I mean, it's weird. It's like we're just emanating this energy that they're able to just soak right up, and they soak it in, and then the nanites within their body sends a majority of it, constantly feeding it back to this AI God that we call it, through the subspace type of connection. and they are also getting a high off of a nourishment of some sort off of this energy. So they have every reason to want to have a higher population of miserable people.
So everybody be happy, starve a reptilian. Okay.
That's right.
Laugh. You know, I try to bring
on Mika's planet, it was just 2 or 3 days once they snapped out of it.
Really?
Now they were pissed off. They weren't just like, oh, love and light in the streets. They were mad because now they knew about the reptilians. They knew about the Greys. They knew that they were being lied to by these blonde ET, good-looking ETs, and they were mad. But that is not the same energy as the fear and the ignorance combined that was funneling energy to the reptilians and up to the AI God. This anger, you know how like sometimes you feel someone looking at you?
Yeah.
You look over and they're looking at you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Imagine being on a planet to where no one knew you existed, but now billions of beings know you exist and they all hate you.
Ooh,
so that's a different kind of energy. That's a debilitating energy. And they all went into this deep stasis.
Hibernation.
Hibernation.
Even the nanites did, right?
Yeah, the nanites did, and the reptilians especially did.
And they
became completely dependent. Their physiology became very dependent on the sloosh, like a heroin addict. If the heroin stops, they go through all of this withdrawals and all of that. Well, the same thing happened to the reptilians. They went through this weird withdrawal, physiological response, and then they went into hibernation. And that happened like within 3 days. And then after that, there was, it's kind of like, you know, the flow of water. The water's pulls on itself. You know, when the loosh was flowing to them, it was just a constant flow. And when they shut off, it was just a completely different energy on their planet. They felt completely different. It's, you know, as if they came through being almost addicted to something themselves, and on the other side they feel so much better, so pure and clean. They felt just so much different after that cycle was broken.
Wow. And that's what'll happen to us if we can break free from this cycle of war and strife. And, you know, it's, man, wow. But Mika shows it's possible. Now, Mika's planet, you said, was a planet of islands, kind of like a tropical islands.
Yes, so, they don't live on the surface.
They don't.
No, what's interesting is after a lot of these stars, after they go through their fourth density change, on the planet, different types of wildlife will be fine. Plants really do well, but it causes a problem with certain types of beings, including more advanced consciousness and developed beings like humans or our different cosmic cousins. And it affects their physiology. So most of them end up living inside the planet. After the solar event, the frequency of our star changes forever, but also inside our planet, basically it's almost like a plasma star itself in the center of our planet that connects to the cosmic web. It is emanating an energy as well. And the interior of the planet changes energetically, and it can actually be extremely beneficial for life, helping our physiology live 1,000 years, while the energetics on the outside of the planet may make us live like 40 years.
Wow. So living inside the planet is a smart thing to do. And over eons and many generations, many different iterations of civilizations over the millennia, they have gone down into the caverns, and you explain that very well with all the inner Earth peoples.
Emmy's people still, his planet on the outside still looks very much the same, but they've many eons ago, they moved on the inside of the planet, and their planet's like a geode.
Wow.
The inside is full of all these purple crystal mountains.
Wow.
And they have soil and plants and everything growing inside. And the central core of the planet is putting off an energy that the plants can use, and that produces visible light. It's turned into like from a plasma into like a crystalline, if I remember this correctly. But all of his people live inside basically a geode, and the frequency there is, their frequency is so far beyond anyone else's in our local 52 stars. They are amazing. They live in this just giant, it's producing amazing amounts of energy. Humans can't stay in their planet very long. The energy is too powerful for us. It's if you've ever visited Sedona or one of these vortex points, and you find yourself dizzy and disoriented and kind of going in and out of your body, the humans that I know of that visited Mika's planet kept spontaneously going out of their body and having all kinds of weird things happen because of the frequency of their planet.
Wow. Purple Mountains Majesty, it sounds like.
Crystal Mountains.
Crystal Mountains. Wow, fantastic. But that reminds me of the crystals you were communicating with when you were a young child for the programs,
right?
That the Inner Earth people worship, and these crystals. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they kind of answer your prayers, and they're kind of like
they don't worship them, and they're not anything. They're more like a repository. They are connected to the Akashic records, which is also the cosmic web, where everything is connected in this cosmic web. It's this energetic. Everything is connected. Anything that ever has or ever will happen is contained within it, and every planet has, as these crystals develop over millennia, they lock in this energetic history that can be read psychically or through technology. And what I had was this huge download from one of these giant crystals.
Right. And so much like a fire hose, you couldn't even decipher what the heck it was. It was so much.
Right.
Wow. That is so fantastic. Wow, the Olmecs, the Mikas. Now, what's the Zulu's planet like? Do you know anything about their planet?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's who I meant to talk about. That was the Zulu planet.
Oh, okay. I kind of had a feeling that was the case, but
yeah,
Mika's planet
the Zulu planet was the one that's like the geode. Did I say Mika's planet?
I think so, but Mika's planet, you said before, was like a island planet.
Yes, and they have moved inside.
Okay.
And they come out. They're on the outside of the planet to have fun and do those sorts of things, but they sleep at night and live deep in their planet, a certain distance inside their planet to protect them from the frequency of their star
and cosmic rays and everything. It makes sense. I mean, what are we doing on the surface here? We're just waiting for a hurricane to blow us away, right?
Yeah. If we lived within just maybe a few miles below the surface of this planet, so much cosmic radiation would be buffered. The reason that our ancestors used to live so much longer than us is because we had a much larger atmosphere and higher barometric pressures. Some say we were a little closer to the sun, maybe even. And we had a lot larger atmosphere. Now, over the many different solar events, micronovas that we've had, it's stripped away some of that atmosphere. And that, that happened eventually to Mars, where they lost the last little bit of their atmosphere from the solar radiation, the solar winds blowing it away. We have a certain amount of that's gone on when we've gone through changes to where, we don't have the electromagnetic field as strong. We go through different cycles. The electromagnetic field's very weak right now. 800-900 years from now, when it's back at its peak, the atmosphere will grow and we will be protected from more radiation. And during that time period, people and animals would live longer, because what causes aging and the degeneration of cells are these cosmic radiations.
So maybe we can come up with a Sphere Being Alliance umbrella that protects you from those cosmic.
Yeah.
That actually, I had that idea when the ozone layer was being depleted, because plastic acts as ozone, so it's like a personal ozone. So this is incredible information, and I gotta tell everybody, you gotta go over to Sphere Being Alliance and YouTube channel and listen to watch all these videos. Mika's planet and hope for Earth. So when the solar flash happened on Mika's planet, is an island planet, but since they lived inside, they weren't as affected. But living inside the planet, if a leak springs or if something goes wrong and the ceiling caves in, of course, they might have some kind of energetic bubble that keeps everything from collapsing. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you have all different types of forces working in the interior of a planet. But when a planet is first formed and it's really hot, as it cools, it creates giant caverns and pockets and cavities. And as those cool off, they become really reinforced. Now, there are times when, like, if there's a tilt of the axis or whatever, that water will go down into some of these areas. But we're talking about, it's a giant porous object, and if you just dump some water here, it's going to trickle down. It's not going to fill the whole thing. It's a planet. It's not going to be that heavily affected. And from what I can tell, they don't need technology to sustain their living on the inside. There is some technology involved, but they have learned to take the frequency of the core of their planet changed when their star changed. So the frequency being put out by the core of their planet, they're able to tap into, utilize it. Even just like the Zulu planet, they create some sort of visible light as well. It's a different kind of light. I don't know how to describe it, but it's a reaction from the energy and the rocks and the energy of the internal core. It causes some sort of reaction to where there's light on the inside of the planet.
Okay. Now, Carl to go said, where we go on, we go all, says toroidal fields keep it stable. He's the one that thinks everything is a toroidal field. But you said the universe is a toroidal field, but not everything, right?
Well, anything that's producing its own field is going to be a toroidal field. Like our heart creates one, but there has to be electrical impulses and that sort of thing occurring. But some could argue, even down on the atomic level, with what's going on with the electrons and all of that, that it's creating a field around that micro level. But yes, our universe is a giant toroid that's turning in on itself. That's why it looks like some stars are traveling faster than the speed of light. They're twisting in a different way. It's not, how scientists have tried to say we're like just this expanding bubble, like, a soap bubble that you blow. Yeah. And on this bubble, they believe that we're on the outside of this bubble experiencing our experience. And, and as it expands, everything gets bigger around us. It's kind of how they've described it, but it's the torus effect. This giant space is turning inside of itself, just like a giant torus. And that's the way we will never be able to see our entire universe because of that. We'll only be able to see chunks of our universe.
Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. Carrie Swearingen's asking about the elongated skulls, Maldek, and Mars. So the people in Antarctica were from Maldek, and they had the elongated skulls. You think they're the same ones we see in Peru, the skeletal remains?
I think that they're ancestors of those people.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. I think that they're ancestors of those people. And there were two different types of them, but one of the two different types, one lived on their moon, which was Mars, and the other lived on their super Earth planet that Mars was revolving around, and they were much bigger pre-Adamite beings. They looked the same, but they were just a lot bigger. The ones from Mars were a lot more compatible size-wise with modern humans.
Okay. And they did all kinds of experiments. Now, you were brought down there by the Anshar, and they're extracting some of these alien extraterrestrial bodies from the ice because they were melting out.
Yeah.
I bet it didn't smell so good down. Did it have a rank smell down there?
You know, I don't remember the smell of, I don't remember it was all frozen still.
Oh, I see. Sure. I was pretty cold down. I'm on the ice. Yeah.
It was just the way they looked. Like, you know, they'd obviously been hit by waves of water and like twisted around, and like some of their limbs were stretched out and twisted around their bodies, and weird kind of stuff like that I remember the most. None of them looked pristine. None of the bodies looked pristine. They had all been covered in mud and looked like they had just been hit with a wave and just pushed along the bottom of the ocean floor. They were beat up,
but preserved in some sort of way where there was still a being.
Yes. Preserved as if it had just happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
And apparently buildings and things, but they'd be all destroyed.
Most of them, it just depended on where they were and what type. If they had the giant water coming, a lot of the buildings were knocked over. But there were some that were under ice that were somewhat pristine. So a different type of reaction had to have occurred, or a different part of the wave. I don't know, but not everything was totally destroyed. And then, of course, you have areas that were knocked over by the initial wave, but then you've got tons and tons of ice sitting on top of it. And then that ice is moving like a foot, 2 or 3 a year.
Sure.
As the ice shelf moves. So much of what's under there, it's so ground to a pulp, we'll never be able to figure out what it was.
Wow.
But there are certain little protected pockets of things that were preserved somehow.
Wow.
But the majority of things were destroyed.
Interesting. I got a question. Now, when you were inducted into the secret space program, the 20 and Back program, were you given a different name, or did you use your own name when you were in there?
Went by a different name. There were no last names. I mean, just think about it. You could have been working with your grandfather when he was 30 years old.
You wouldn't even know it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it would just be, man, there's that guy, man, he reminds me of people in my family. He's pretty cool.
Wow.
You wouldn't know. Because basically the headquarters for this ICC they're in like 2033 to 2036, just before this solar event. They're working right up to the last minute. And just imagine if you had everyone in the past history was a resource for you. You're like, man, we have this problem that only person that we know could solve this is Einstein. We're like, well, let's send a team back and get his ass, bring him here, have him figure it out, wipe his mind, send him back.
Mhm.
That's brilliant. Let's do it. Well, what about Tesla? Let's get him. What about someone 1,000 years ago? They had a certain knowledge that we want. We'll go get them.
Wow.
So we talk about 20 and backs, but this group, anyone in history is a potential asset for them. Even if you're 70 years old and you have dementia and you're sitting in a home somewhere, they're like, man, when he was younger, he had everything we needed for this mission. Well, they'll just go back 20, 30 years before your disease kicked in, snag you then, and then take you out for the mission. I mean, that's some crazy resources to have for an
So you're
organization.
sitting there working, and a new guy comes in with a top hat. Boy, that guy looks a lot like Abe Lincoln. Maybe it's Abe Lincoln.
We're all dressed the same, but the funny thing is people from like the 1940s and 50s and 60s, they have a certain way of talking, a certain body language, a way of holding themselves, and those types of details kind of stick out to you that they come from a different era. But if I would go by the name Jim, was a name that they had me go by.
Yeah.
I guess for my first name, James, but no one there would know, oh, Corey Goode, that name's I served with him in the programs. When people say that, it's just like, they're like, oh man, I know this guy, but he went by a different name. It was a different name, and it's more like that. It's layers upon layers of making sure people didn't figure.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. In fact, Andrew Brishago, whom I've also interviewed, he and his father were in a continuation of government program where they had different names and different military ranks in case there was an emergency, and they, have a new headquarters, and they each have different jobs that they would do in case something catastrophic happened. But yeah, they all had different names too. So I thought, wow, I bet in the secret space program, they probably had different names too, because they wouldn't want you to remember someone's name, right?
Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when you were going to these Draco, and when they took you recently in the last few months or so to these Draco bases, and you saw some horrific things, I mean, how did you keep from being noticed? Were you like a invisible bubble or something? Or
I can't talk about the methods that we used to breach because we're still able to use them. They didn't think we'd be able to use them this long, but we're still able to use it. So the enemy has not detected the method.
Okay, so using the old, probably using the old, this little thing here, the time machine. But yeah, wow. Let me see here.
Did you know how long we were going to go tonight?
Well, we've gone about an hour now. Do you want to go a little longer?
Yeah, maybe another 20 minutes.
Okay. So I've asked you a lot of questions. What is it that you want to talk about? Because, we all want to hear more stuff from you.
Well, I mean, the graphic novel that I've been working on for over 4 years, I had Marvel and then the old company Gaia try to keep me from putting it out. I had some old partners that were doing all they could to keep it from coming out, and I kept telling everybody, this is going to be the foundation of all the work that the Blue Avians and the others wanted me to do in the entertainment industry, to actually red pill the mass consciousness with this information. So through pure stubbornness and the help of a wonderful, wonderful team, we were able to recently complete this graphic novel, and it's a masterpiece. We have Richard Ashley Hamilton, well-known, very talented writer, created the script for us. We had to completely start over. a year ago. We completely started over everything. And then Stephen really knocked out the art. We brought on Jackie, who you interviewed, Ulysses, brilliant artist. Yeah, brilliant artist.
Yeah.
And really all of this came together because of David Kalbeitzer. He's a good friend of mine. You know, he's worked with Disney and Imagineering, all these big companies. And he's the one that introduced me to Richard and really helped get the graphic novel rolling and into the finish line. And I owe him a big debt of gratitude. He's working with me on a lot of other projects. A friend of mine who's well known in the entertainment industry is providing us a lot of really interesting opportunities right now that I can't go into, but I've got a whole lot of unscripted material properties that we're pitching, some scripted, a television series based directly off the graphic novel that we're getting a lot of interest in. A certain platform is looking forward to speaking with us again about it. Things are going super well. We're really being put in a position to where this information can be put out to the masses in a big way.
Oh yeah.
So we're super excited. So the graphic novel is really setting all of that off. And also we're really excited about AscensionWorks.tv. We're creating our own streaming platform there where we're going to have a lot of shows from people in the community where they'll be able to put shows, publish shows. But it's also a social media platform to where people can go and not worry about being deplatformed or harassed, by all these other platforms that are deplatforming people by the tens of thousands recently.
Yeah, it's
So,
terrible.
we're really excited about that as well. But the things in the entertainment industry that are popping up for us are very encouraging. We're really excited about that.
That's awesome. I would love to create some content for your Ascension Works TV
Very
thing.
cool.
And so I'd like to talk to you about that maybe off camera or something sometime.
Yeah, people, there's for those who do, there's a place on the website on Ascension Works TV to go and apply to get the ball rolling. But Mike Wiskowski is really the person that's really helping pull that together. So yeah, I'd love to set up a meeting with everyone and see what we can come up with.
That'd be great. That would be great. Suiterbug, thank you for the super chat. Keep it up, Corey. Can't wait to get my graphic novel. So
Maybe in another week we'll be sending it.
Wow.
Yes.
And now I got to ask you, what is it like to open up a book that's your life story? I mean,
It's weird.
Pretty incredible.
It's weird. And it's weird for my kids and my wife because we really live these things. These are like snapshots of our life. It's not just like, oh, this is a story that's got my picture on it. We're like, holy crap, this looks almost exactly like it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really weird. And it's also very emotional. There were some of the pages, Stephen would send them to me and I would say, okay, me and my grandfather, this. I had very special relationships, especially with one of my grandfathers. And he would send back the art and I would cry. I mean, I would be emotionally moved because there was so much realism in this graphic novel. We put a lot into it, not just imagery and great writing, but there's a lot of emotion.
Yes.
A lot of this was really very similar to what I saw and what I felt.
When an artist creates a work of art, they put their emotions into it. They make their emotion match what the emotion is, so that it really comes through. And you can't ask for a better master artist than Stephen Cefalo. I mean, he's like Michelangelo.
Each pane is a portrait.
I know it.
This is a book of portraits. It's not a sketched out comic.
Right.
It's a great comic graphic novel with a superior writer, and then you get all this badass art on top of it, all these portraits. You know, most people just reading the story, it's a great story, and if they have decent art, it comes together in their mind, and it's fine. This is just, yeah. I mean, the different graphic novel companies and publishers have seen nothing like it.
Right.
And on that note, you know, there are people interested in publishing it for us, and they would want a percentage of the entertainment rights, and then try to tell me how to develop it and all of these things. We've decided to develop out our own publishing company, Disclosure Comics.
Yes, Disclosure Comics.
We'll have a logo for it soon, but we've got, I think it's 8 novels in a series similar to The Expanse that are going to be developed. They're going to be sci-fi novels based on my story and information that I think Richard's probably going to write. And then we're going to finish out the graphic novel, which is based directly the true story of my life in my story. It's going to be told that way. And then we also have a comic series coming out that's going to tell stories of various groups of humans through different time eras on Earth, and how and all of these stories will tie in to my greater story that I've told about the history. We're going to like retell the history of the cosmos through these comic books.
Awesome.
And some of the people that we're pitching that to and talking to are really excited and happy. We're creating some more documents for those. So, you know, we're really looking to see if we can make a major difference to the mass consciousness. You know, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's all about the money. It's all about the money, because I open lawsuits against people that steal from me, don't allow them to take my money. So it's all about the money. But it's not all about the money. It's about the mission. The mission is to awaken the mass consciousness. We're not going to do that by like forming little groups, telling little stories and stuff. Getting this narrative out to the mass consciousness, even if they think it's like, oh, great sci-fi, this is like crazy, amazing, wow. It's going into their consciousness, and it's filtering, you know, up through their higher self, and it's going to do all of the work that it's supposed to do. That's what my mission is. And my mission is not to become, you know, rich and famous. It's to awaken the mass consciousness. And the information that I've brought forward over the last 8 years is one of the biggest red pills there is. And we've got a lot of people coming in, telling stories, trying to, you know, be opportunists on the shirt tails of this information. But the actual information itself is about to really hit the mass consciousness in a big way. And that's what it's about for me and my family. It's when we leave this planet, we want it to be a better place when we leave. You can't take money with you. You can't take fame with you. That's all the ego that you leave behind.
Right.
But when you leave your ego behind, if you could leave the world a better place where people think differently, they're behaving differently, man, what a legacy.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Just beautiful. The Global Galactic League of Nations. That was something you said that, I think you said that Ronald Reagan started when he was apprised of the secret space program. He said, wait a minute, every nation needs to be involved. And he went to every nation and made a deal with every nation. Hey, we need, you know, for 1 or 5% of your GDP, we can get you in the secret space program. You have your own little colonies. So if the Earth gets wiped out, your people will still have
exist.
Yes.
Yeah.
So did you learn about that on the glass pad?
Yes, I learned about the Global Galactic League of Nations very early on. That's one of the first programs I learned about.
Wow. Now, you said the glass pad kind of reads your mind, right?
Well, it's kind of like a dumb terminal that plugs into the cosmic web and through your consciousness, but it also ties into these ET databases that
Okay.
we've been given. We've been given these pretty massive ET databases that these things tap into as well.
Wow. So you spent in your lonely times on the research vessel between all these miraculous discoveries that you guys made. It's a lot of downtime, and you just spent a lot of time. Were they just not monitoring you, or they didn't care if you looked at it? Because
I was in an area to where I was either supporting the engineers or the scientists. So we would sit there and they would, turn this machine on. It's going to run this experiment for the next 4 hours.
Mhm.
Okay, we sit back and we monitor the telemetry and all of that sort of thing. And then we kind of talk and stuff, but you're not really supposed to talk about personal stuff too much. So then, they allowed me to access this glass pad, and they had a much wider open access to these databases. So I was seeing stuff that no one else could see in the programs.
Wow.
And I'm just asking them question after question, like as I'm sitting here looking at it, they're working, and in between I'm asking them all these questions and understanding maybe half of what they say,
Right.
because it was so high level.
Wow.
Excuse me.
It's okay.
I got no one out there really got as much time on the glass pads as I did, because I just had so much opportunity.
Well, we're really glad you were the one that got it, because you're the guy talking. So we're so grateful that you did.
I'm starting to lose my voice, so if we could write it down here soon.
Okay, sure. All right. I think, well, let's see. Yeah, it's 9:22. I think, now wait a minute. Can Corey give us when he is going to offer the description of the new Guardians? That's Todd Van Swearingen. Angel.
Okay. Soon. Yeah.
Soon, Todd. That's the answer.
I don't have the voice to do it right now. I thought about doing it.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess maybe we should just wrap it up then.
Sorry about that. I've been talking today on phone calls and meetings, trying to get all of our stuff ready.
Well, I have to thank you again for doing this. I'm very honored that you chose to come on the Truth Quest first. I'm very, very honored by that. And you're welcome back anytime, and hopefully soon. But we're anxiously looking for your next release on all of your various different platforms. And are you going to be on Truth Social?
I don't think there are any plans of being on Truth Social anytime soon. I might get an account there, but I am focusing my content for a certain target audience and group. Okay. And I think we're pretty in the sweet spot for that. So
okay,
if I can be vague and make sense at the same time.
you can. Thank you, Elder Dragon, for the super chat. Thanks, Corey. Elder Dragon says, and the chat's just been going nuts. They're loving it. We love having you on here. You're our favorite whistleblower. You're the only secret space program whistleblower, as far as I'm concerned. And
I wish there were more out there.
Well,
there were several that were about to come out before all the cyber stalking and things got really nuts. And then even lawsuits were involved. I have federal lawsuits against people who were cyber stalking us, terrifying my family. So people decided they would rather not come out and deal with that. The people that have come out claiming to be whistleblowers, you notice, are not being harassed. They claim to be harassed by me because I call them fake, but they don't have people harassing them, helicopters flying around their houses and all that crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But that kind of stuff was happening to some of the people that were coming forward. But thank you, I appreciate it. Maybe in the future we'll get some, we're talking to some other whistleblowers or insiders that are going to bring out information in some of these new shows. Some very exciting information, and we found ways to do it to protect their identities. So there's a lot more to come.
And for people who are wondering, they have to remember now, you also released some top secret documents that,
Yes.
so this guy's the real deal, folks. He's really tapped in and hooked in to not only people here on Earth, but people elsewhere.
Yeah, I
So,
literally talk to colonels and generals on a weekly basis. I mean,
wow.
real generals, real colonels, a lot of them retired, but still completely connected and plugged in. So yeah, I'm not looking at newspaper articles and saying, oh, whoa, that could match my narrative and putting out stories and stuff. I'm like actually talking to people. I actually put out 2 DIA documents that made the national news.
Yeah.
And I have the connections and information that are legit.
Well, thank you for your service. We all thank you and salute you. You're the best. And continued success. Everybody go out and grab that comic, that graphic novel.
Disclosurecomics.com.
Disclosurecomics.com. And you don't need a Christmas gift list because everyone's going to get the graphic novel. Okay, just get it for them. They're going to love it and will help raise the consciousness of this planet. And pretty soon we'll be just like Emmy, doing the dance and making crazy things happen. So thank you again, Corey, and repeat in. And thank you to everyone in the chat and all of the wonderful mods.